All right, good evening and welcome to the Maricopa Association of Governments virtual public scoping meeting for the State Route 74 Corridor Transportation Planning Study. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Participants joining us are currently muted. I'll describe the meeting format and how to participate in just a moment. But first, if you are having any technical issues right now, you may need to hang up or log off, then redial or reconnect. Please note this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the study website later. If you would like to turn on closed captioning, click Show Captions on the bottom of your screen to start viewing the closed captions. Si necesita traducción al español para esta reunión, visite la azmag.gov/SR74study y vea el video de esta presentación en español. Luego, puede enviar cualquier pregunta o comentario que tenga a qcastro@azmag.gov. The format for tonight is a presentation, followed by an open question and answer session. After the presentation, we'll provide instructions on how to ask a question or comment by phone or online. Keep in mind that after this meeting, you can continue to ask questions or provide comments through June 5th, and we'll tell you how to do that following the presentation. Pursuant to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and other non-discrimination laws and authorities, MAG does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. Persons that require a reasonable accommodation based on language or disability should contact Quinn Castro at 602-254-6300, extension 5094, or via email at qcastro@azmag.gov. Requests should be made as early as possible to ensure the project team has had an opportunity to address the accommodation. Your study team hosts for this evening include Quinn Castro, the study manager from the Maricopa Association of Governments, and Alex Meisner, the study project manager from MAG's consultant, HDR. And with that, I will hand things over to Quinn to get us started. Quinn?
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Quinn Castro, and I work for the Maricopa Association of Governments, or MAG. MAG is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Maricopa County region to ensure a uniform and cohesive strategy for transportation investment. MAG's State Route 74 Transportation Planning Study is being delivered in coordination with the agencies that have transportation interests in the corridor, including the Arizona Department of Transportation, the City of Phoenix, the City of Peoria, the City of Surprise, and Maricopa County. MAG has procured the services of HDR Engineering to assist in the development of the study. The study team is made up of staff from both MAG and HDR. We are grateful for everyone's participation and effort. Tonight's public scoping meeting for the State Route 74 Corridor Transportation Planning Study will cover the following topics: the study area, background, and objective, the physical and environmental constraints along the corridor, the crash data within the corridor, an overview of the current and future population and employment growth, an overview of the current and future no-build traffic conditions, and finally, we will conclude with the next steps involved with this study. Now I turn things over to Alex Meisner, who will take us through the study. Alex, it seems like your audio is muted.
You all right? Thanks, Quinn. I'll start by giving some background on the study limits, and the study objective. State Route 74 is a rural highway in the northern part of the Phoenix metro area. It stretches for about 30 miles, starting from US 60 near Morristown on the west and ending at I-17 on the east, where it transitions to the Carefree Highway. The corridor passes through the planning areas of Surprise, Peoria, Phoenix, and also unincorporated Maricopa County. This study area boundary includes the entire length of State Route 74, with an assumed width of approximately 1 mile on either side of the highway. The main objective of this planning study is to develop a clear, long-term vision for the corridor to guide both midterm and long-term investment decisions. Several studies have been done for the SR 74 corridor over the last 2 decades. While this study has reviewed those and will selectively draw from some of their recommendations, this study will develop and update the corridor vision based on the latest development plans, available traffic information, and stakeholder input. At this point in the study, we are focusing on the existing and future conditions in the corridor. This includes determining physical and environmental constraints and identifying safety and operational issues. It is this based on information that we are seeking input from the public on, based on what you see and experience when you travel in the area. Your feedback is valuable and will help the study team refine its understanding of the problems that face the study area. Ultimately, the data and public feedback we collect will be used to inform the corridor vision and recommendations that will be developed later in the study. Midterm recommendations will be developed for the year 2035, and long-term recommendations will be developed for the year 2050. Instructions on how to submit your feedback will be provided at the end of the presentation. So I'll start by discussing the physical constraints along the corridor. First, while the Phoenix and Surprise segments of the corridor are relatively flat, the Peoria segment of SR 74 does have some mountainous terrain to overcome, with approximately 800 feet of elevation difference over just a few miles. This results in some climbing lanes in that portion of the corridor. Numerous utilities exist in the area, including El Paso Natural Gas, APS overhead power lines, and several fiber optic lines. The Central Arizona Project Canal crosses under SR 74 south of Lake Pleasant. The New River, the Agua Fria River, and dozens of washes cross SR 74, generally flowing from north to south. A total of 268 drainage culverts cross under the highway, with the majority being in the western Surprise segment. Flooding of the highway can occur in several locations after large storms, which can require the highway to be closed until floodwaters subside. SR 74 is within existing ADOT right-of-way, which generally has a width of 100 feet on either side of the highway. I'll now go over existing land ownership and access points along the corridor. The majority of land along SR 74 is owned by Arizona State Trust Land, the Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Reclamation, and private property owners. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company campus is a major development under construction in the eastern end of the corridor, and BNSF Railway has plans to develop an intermodal facility near the western portion of the corridor. Other notable landowners along the corridor include the Arizona Game and Fish Headquarters, Ben Avery Shooting Range, Lake Pleasant Regional Park, and the Quintero Golf Club. The Pleasant Valley Airport exists southwest of the intersection of SR 74 and Lake Pleasant Parkway. Residences exist on the west end of the corridor in Morristown and in the Quintero Golf Club development. The small blue diamonds shown on this map along the corridor represent existing access points along SR 74. Approximately 110 formal and informal driveways and crossroads exist along the 30-mile corridor, and of those, only 16 have left or right turn lanes associated with them. Traffic signals exist at Lake Pleasant Parkway and the Arizona Game and Fish Headquarters intersections. The intersections with US 60, 51st Avenue, and 43rd Avenue are planned to be signalized as part of nearby developments. Route 74 is classified as a two-lane rural highway with occasional turn lanes at intersections. 1 mile long passing lane segments exist in a few spots along the mountainous segment of the corridor, with 2 passing lane segments in the westbound direction and 1 passing lane segment in the eastbound direction. The posted speed limit is 65 miles per hour in the western segment and 55 miles per hour in the eastern segment. Near Ben Avery Shooting Range and the Arizona Game and Fish Headquarters, the speed limit drops down to 45 miles per hour. This is a view of the typical roadway cross-section. The corridor generally has 2 12-foot travel lanes with a 6-foot shoulder on each side, except for areas with climbing or turn lanes. This view shows the existing ADOT right-of-way limits at 100 feet on each side of SR 74, represented by the magenta lines. Next, let's review the key environmental characteristics and constraints of the study area. There are several wildlife movement and connectivity zones that cross SR 74, indicated by the crosshatched and pink regions on this figure. Many of the movement areas are concentrated around water sources, with Lake Pleasant being a major water source that animals south of SR 74 must cross the highway to access. This map also shows protected status properties that include both historic and public recreation sites, indicated by the dark green regions. The most notable are Lake Pleasant Regional Park and Ben Avery Shooting Range. Several public trails exist in the corridor, including the Maricopa Trail, the Black Canyon National Recreation Trail, and the Beardsley Trail, which are indicated by the green dashed lines. And finally, the historic Beardsley Canal crosses under SR 74 near the Agua Fria River, indicated by the red dashed line. The corridor does cross over some mapped floodplains, primarily associated with the two river crossings shown in blue. Because State Route 74 currently spans these areas with bridges, no material impacts to the floodplains are anticipated with any recommendations. A quick review of the census tract socioeconomic data does indicate that a few low-income blocks are located near the corridor, shown in the solid light green regions. These regions are not expected to have a material impact on any corridor recommendations. Now, let's shift our focus to safety. Crash data shows 158 total crashes over the last 5 years on SR 74. Many crashes are due to vehicles turning off or onto the highway at certain access points. In this map, existing access points are again represented by the blue diamonds. This figure depicts a heat map of the crashes, with green highlighted areas indicating a low number of crashes, yellow indicating a higher number of crashes, and red indicating the highest concentration of crashes. As you can see, crash hotspots are concentrated around certain access points like the Boulders off-highway vehicle area, Castle Hot Springs Road, 87th Avenue, and Lake Pleasant Parkway. There are also crashes concentrated where informal driveways are closely spaced together. A special note is the blue dots that represent animal strike crashes, which account for 20% of crashes recorded in the corridor. The locations of these animal strikes are correlated with the wildlife movement zones we discussed on the previous slide. Next, let's talk about projected growth in the area. This figure shows a comparison of current 2024 population density in the top figure and the projected density in 2050 in the bottom figure. Looking at the top map, the entirety of the corridor has low population density with less than 500 people per square mile. When we compare that to the 2050 map on the bottom, we see a significant increase in population density, primarily south of SR 74 in Peoria and Phoenix. Areas shaded in yellow, orange, and red indicate much higher densities, ranging from 1,000 to over 5,000 people per square mile. Similar to the previous slide, this figure shows a comparison of the current and future employment density in the area. Like the population, we see very low job density along the corridor today. In 2050, however, we see significant employment growth along the corridor, especially around the BNSF and Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company campuses, as well as north of SR 74 in Phoenix. These population and employment projections highlight the growth of the region surrounding SR 74 over the coming 2 decades. These population and job growth trends will increase travel demand in the region. The next few slides demonstrate what the travel requirements are in the corridor today and in 2050 if no improvements are made. Before we get into travel demand and congestion in the corridor, we need to introduce the concept of level of service. Level of service is a qualitative measure used to describe the level of congestion on a roadway. The exhibit on the slide depicts a visualization of each service level. At level of service A and B, traffic flows at or above the posted speed limit, known as free flow speed. At this level of service, traffic volumes are low and travel delays are non-existent. At level of service C, a notable increase in traffic density is experienced, but traffic flow remains stable and speeds remain at or near free flow speeds. At level of service D, the roadway is operating near its capacity. Flow is generally stable, but minor incidents or slowdowns can create delays. In urban areas, we generally target a level of service to be at D or better. At level of service E, things start to break down. High traffic density restricts traffic flow, leading to increased delays. Traffic flow is becoming unstable and delays are common. At level of service F, things slow down significantly with traffic volumes exceeding the maximum capacity of the roadway. This is the lowest level of service and is characterized by stop and go traffic, low speeds, and significant travel delays. Now, I will discuss how future traffic growth will impact traffic in the corridor if no action is taken. These figures will depict level of service, with green being level of service C or better, yellow being level of service D, and red showing where failing conditions of level of service E or worse will occur. Top exhibit shows current 2025 traffic conditions. The portion between US 60 and New River Road operates at an acceptable level of service C or better today. East of New River Road and Lake Pleasant Parkway, SR 74 is operating at level of service D, indicating some slowdowns, but still generally stable traffic flow. The bottom exhibit shows projected level of service in 2050 if no improvements are made to SR 74. What we find is the segment between US 60 and Castle Hot Springs Road is at level of service D, and east of there is at level of service E or worse, indicating severe traffic congestion. The adopted general plans for Phoenix, Peoria, and Surprise identify new intersecting arterial roads with SR 74 in the future transportation network, which are 243rd Avenue, 187th Avenue, 163rd Avenue, Estancia Road, El Mirage Road, 67th Avenue, 51st Avenue, and 43rd Avenue. These arterial roads will service future developments north and south of the corridor. A common question we get is how we estimate the future traffic demand. Future traffic volumes are generated using MAG's adopted travel demand model for the entire region. MAG's model works by projecting traffic growth based on future land use plans and planned and approved developments. Estimates of future travel demand are then assigned to the transportation network anticipated for a given horizon year. In the case of this study, we are looking at the year 2050. We then correlated the resulting SR 74 volume forecast to the capacity of a rural two-lane highway to determine the expected level of service. The key takeaway from this slide is that congestion along the corridor will get worse if no improvements are made to SR 74 as the surrounding area develops, especially in the eastern portion within City of Phoenix. So, where are we at in the study, and what are we going to do with all this information? We started the study at the end of 2023 and expect to complete it by the end of this year. Currently, we are at the data collection and forecasting stage. Our goal at this stage is to get consensus on the corridor problems we need to solve and to understand the constraints we have to work around to solve those problems. Next, we'll develop a corridor vision and some possible alternatives to achieve that vision. Once we have developed the corridor vision, goals, and alternatives, we will have another public meeting later in the year to present the recommended alternative and collect feedback prior to developing the final corridor vision document. With that, I'm going to hand things back to Randy, who will let you know how to ask any questions or provide any comments you may have.
Thank you, Alex. In just a few minutes, you'll be able to ask the study team questions. We'll take questions in the order they are received. We are looking for input and feedback on the current SR 74 corridor and how we can improve it. If you aren't ready to comment tonight and would like to take more time to provide your feedback, you can provide comments online via the study website at azmag.gov/SR74study, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen with your mobile device to access that website. You can email Quinn Castro at qcastro@azmag.gov. You can use the SR74 comment tool, which we're going to show you in just a moment, or you can send a letter addressed to SR74 Corridor Study to 302 North 1st Avenue, Suite 200, Phoenix AZ 85003. And comments are being accepted through Thursday, June 5th, 2025. This is the commenting tool, our interactive comment map. This tool allows you to select a specific area of the corridor you would like to comment on, and also gives you options for specific topics you'd like to comment on. And you can go ahead and scan that QR code if you'd like, and it'll take you to that interactive comment map as well. Or you can go to go.azmag.gov/maps/SR74 comment study. If you would like to type in a question or comment, you can use our Q&A feature that is at the bottom of your screen with the two chat box icons. You can simply click that, open it up, and type in your question or comment. We will respond to the questions and comments from the Q&A feature verbally. If you'd like to verbally make a statement or ask a question, we ask that you please virtually raise your hand with the raise hand icon. For those of you using Zoom through your internet browser, mobile phone app, or your Zoom desktop app, simply follow the instructions on the screen. If you'd like to ask your question or make a statement, click the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click raise hand. When you're called, the moderator will unmute your microphone and allow you to speak. When you are finished, we ask that you please lower your hand as your line will also be muted. If you'd like to ask a question and you're on the telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute your microphone when prompted by the moderator. And with that, let me check our Q&A box. The two questions that are the same. Will this slide presentation be available to view after this presentation? Quinn, I will let you handle that one.
Thank you, Randy. Yes, the presentation will be made available on the MAG website, the study website that Randy had presented just one slide before. You can also, there we go, azmag.gov/SR74 study. We're also going to put the version that we've recorded of this presentation so that if you'd like to watch and listen to it again.
Thank you, Quinn. Our first question, other than that, is, thank you for putting this on. What is the plan for the future of this corridor? Is it to increase traffic lights or expansion of lanes, or is it too early in the process to determine?
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
I can go ahead and take that question. Thank you. Yes, so that's the next step in the study. Currently, what we're looking for is feedback from the public and comments from you about issues and questions that you have on the corridor. We will be developing alternatives and have a second public meeting to be held fall of this year.
Our next question is there consideration to make a stretch of SR74 an access-controlled expressway with a free-flowing interchange at SR74 and I-17 all the way to Vistancia Boulevard, the Vistancia Boulevard future intersection at SR74? It appears this will be necessary with the anticipated growth in Peoria and Phoenix south of SR74.
Thanks, Randy. I can answer that. Yeah, that's what we will be looking at in the next phase of this study. Again, we don't have any recommendations at this point, but we will be looking at access control and future travel demand at existing interchanges and future intersections along SR74 and determining what needs to be done there in the future.
Once again, if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A box or you can raise your hand. I'll ask a question right now. Does the projected growth and traffic models include the plans at the BNSF site near I-17?
Yes, the adopted MAG regional travel model does include that facility in the 2050 model. While the actual facility size of BNSF and its traffic generation is still being studied, it appears that only 10% of that site's traffic will utilize SR74.
And we actually had a question come in that was related to that. What impact will there be to Highway 74 from semi truck traffic?
So again, the BNSF facility is in MAG's travel demand model. And what we're seeing is that only about 10% of that site's traffic will use SR74 based on the information we have at this time.
So I'll ask another question that's kind of related to that previous one. Does the projected growth and traffic model include the plans at the Taiwan semiconductor site near I-17?
Yes, the adopted MAG regional travel model does include the build out of that development in the 2050 model. And it also includes the associated residential and commercial growth that is expected to occur to support that site.
Okay, question came in that says, from the presentation, it appears that 163 will connect to 74. Is there a target date for that to be completed?
No, not at this time.
Okay, we have a hand raised, so I'm going to call on Tina Graham. Tina, go ahead and unmute your line. Tina, looks like your line is unmuted, but if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. All right, we'll try and see if we can get Tina's microphone to work again. But while we do that, I have a couple more questions. Animal crossing points due to high accident numbers now? That was a question from Vivian.
Yeah, so there are quite a few animal crossing points along SR 74, and there's crashes correlated with that. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what the question is, but there's about 20% of crashes observed in the corridor are related to animal impacts.
Tina, go ahead and unmute your microphone and let's see if we can get it to work this time around. All right, you are unmuted, so go ahead and speak. And if you are speaking, we still can't hear you. All right, it looks like she's having some microphone issues. So Tina, if you want, please put your question in the Q&A box and we will make sure we answer it for you. Our next question is, what is your plan to coordinate with major landowners situated along the route during the study development?
We'll let you take that one, Quinn.
Thank you, Alex. So at this time, we're just coordinating with our local member agencies. So the cities as identified previously, Arizona Department of Transportation and Maricopa County. The intent of this study is to kind of identify the future needs along the corridor, not yet to, we don't yet have a funding plan in order to implement those suggested improvements.
And it looks like we did get a follow-up from Vivian to give us a little bit more context to her question. It was, will there be a passage for animals for safe crossing?
So that's something we'll be evaluating and coordinating with Arizona Game and Fish, and we'll be looking at that in the next phase of this study.
Tina was able to put in her question in the Q&A box. So her question was, this plan is 25 years in the future, but the traffic will be increasing significantly prior to that. Will there be an interim plan?
Yes, so the scope of this study is to give both near-term and long-term recommendations. So our near-term horizon is 2035, 10 years out from now. And then long-term is 2050, 25 years out from now. So yes, our final corridor vision document will have shorter term recommendations in there.
Our next question is, are improvements to the intersection of US 60 and SR 74 planned? Current left turns onto Carefree Highway from southbound 60 are approaching dangerous levels during peak times.
So nothing is currently planned or funded for those intersections, but as part of this study, we will be looking at the operations of those and evaluating if anything needs to be done there in the future.
Would you be open to including wildlife crossing structures such as large culverts along any newly proposed intersections where applicable? This would help reduce wildlife strikes, particularly burrow.
Yeah, so wildlife crossing management is going to be something that we look at in the next phase of this study. And yeah, we're aware it's a problem out there, and we're going to evaluate things with Arizona Game and Fish about how that can be mitigated.
Next one is, I believe that you mentioned traffic lights along Highway 74 in the future. Can you be more specific as to where these may be and possible time frame, especially near Lake Pleasant?
So again, we don't have that yet. The next phase of the study will have a lot more recommendations and timeframes associated with that, but we don't have that information currently at this point.
Okay, another question is, will MAG define the land use and zoning surrounding SR 74 as part of this study?
No, MAG as the regional planning agency does not have the authority to establish land use and zoning rules. Only the cities and the county have that authority.
Will new right-of-way need to be required for the proposed improvements?
Um, so it's too early in the study right now to answer that, but it's possible that new right-of-way may be required for proposed improvements, especially at major intersections.
Will the sections of SR 74 that frequently flood be fixed?
So we encourage the public to note on the interactive comment tool anywhere where they experience frequent flooding on the corridor to help us identify those locations. Our study will attempt to identify these flooding areas, and if warranted, may include recommendations to make the corridor more resilient during storms by either replacing or adding culverts or even raising the roadway in certain areas.
I'll do another call to the audience. If there are any remaining questions, please either put them in the Q&A box or go ahead and raise your hand. And then I'll also ask, what sort of improvements is MAG proposing to SR 74?
So we don't have any specific improvements identified at this point. That will come in the next phase of the study. At this point, we are looking for the issues that are out there currently that will inform our recommendations and alternatives that we evaluate in the next phase.
What is the current right-of-way width and will it accommodate future lane widths and access? Have there been any moves made to secure right-of-way before the land becomes expensive and increases future project costs?
Yeah, so the current right-of-way width is 100 feet on either side of the highway. So it's a 200-foot total right-of-way width that ADOT currently has. And we'll be looking in the next phase of the study what additional right-of-way needs, if any, are required, and also, yeah, any right-of-way procurement that needs to happen for recommended improvements. But not at this time. We don't have that identified.
When will improvements along SR 74 be constructed?
So this study will identify near-term and long-term plans to develop corridor infrastructure improvements for SR 74. Funding has not been identified to fund future projects at this time.
All right, I'm going to do one last call for any questions from the audience. Again, you can click the Q&A box or you can raise your hand. And I also want to thank everybody who has asked questions. This has been great engagement, and this is exactly why we have these meetings, so that we can hear from you and you can let us know what questions you have and that we can answer. So I'll give it another minute if you have any remaining questions.
Yeah, and again, any comments on this interactive map will help us a lot in the next phase of the study. So take advantage of that.
Okay, I have one come in that says Maricopa County Parks employees at Lake Pleasant may have input regarding the road, as well as high visitor use times, etc. BLM may as well regarding their new shooting sports sites. Maricopa County Parks has been looking to make a Maricopa Trail connection from Lake Pleasant to Hassayampa Vulture Mountain Regional Parks. It would be great if a path or trail could be included in the SR 74 right-of-way.
You want to take that one, Quinn?
Sure. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Eileen. That is a great comment, and we will take that into consideration with our next phase of the study when we're looking at improvements along the corridor.
Okay, I do not see any more questions. But I would say, Eileen, if you could please send us that information about the trails, you can send that email to Quinn at qcastro@azmag.gov. And thank you for that question. And I'll just remind you that we want to hear from you, and all comments are being accepted through June 5th. Thank you, Eileen. She said that she will let the Maricopa Trail manager know about the project today and that she'll be in touch. So we appreciate that, Eileen. Again, comments are being accepted through June 5th. You can email Quinn at qcastro@azmag.gov. You can visit the project website, azmag.gov/SR74study, and you can scan that QR code that's on the screen. You can mail your comments to SR74 Corridor Study, 302 North First Avenue, Suite 200, Phoenix, AZ 85003. And like we've been mentioning, you can also go to the interactive comment map, which is at geo.azmag.gov/maps/SR74 comment study, where you can scan that QR code that's on the screen. And again, you can give us very specific comments about specific areas, and you can tell us exactly what your concern or question is about, whether it be safety or anything like that. You can see on the screen there's safety, intersection, drainage, flooding, access, etc. So those questions about the animal strikes, that's a great one. You can do that right here on this interactive comment map. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time. And again, if you have any further comments or questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.